Anyway, what were you saying about Fahrenheit and being the only
It's
way to
the
measure
only
temperature?
way to measure temperature, because it is the American way to measure temperature. And the American way is, as we all know, the only way. And so when you look at, European ridiculousness like Celsius, and then you put that against things like the Zeppelin, which is yet another example of European ridiculousness. Using Celsius is tantamount to filling a balloon with hydrogen and then sending it across the Atlantic and expecting it to not blow up. It's
It's probably
apples.
the metric system that caused that.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
And so when you look at a good American idea like Fahrenheit, created, I'm certain, by an American, uh, that is what the world ought to use as a standard, because we Americans are we are a shining city on a hill, in the words of John Winthrop. And as part of that, we must shine the Fahrenheit message out to other more benighted regions like France and Germany and Spain and Canada.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? If there's anybody watching this who has really good AI chops, they should turn Jack into Sam the Eagle there from the Muppets.
You
It is
know,
the American way.
mhm. Sam the
Um,
Eagle is my third favorite Muppet.
He's your
That would
third
be
favorite. Who are your first two favorites? This is
I'm a big
really important
Statler.
now.
So I consider Statler and Waldorf to be
Sure.
one collective. So they're my first favorite Muppet, and then my second is Fozzie Bear. What about you? Who are your favorite
I
Muppets?
mean, I must admit, Sam is right up there too.
Hmm.
I do love Sam. Statler and Waldorf's a great choice. Fozzie
Hmm.
Bear, eh.
Yeah,
Big fan of Miss Piggy.
yeah, that's
She
fair.
always
That's
cracks
fair.
me up.
Hmm.
And yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
but you know, we're both in the same neighborhood there,
Oh yeah.
with Muppets.
Hmm.
The
I'm glad to hear that. While we, might be arguing across a chasm when it comes to temperature measurement formulas.
Oh,
Um,
I'm not arguing that Fahrenheit is not superior to Celsius. I'm sure it is.
mhm,
But you know, just because my DNA is not really American, it's Canadian. You know,
mm,
it has a really hard time just fully embracing the beautiful spirituality and patriotism that is
sure.
with Fahrenheit,
You'll
and
get there.
imperial measurements generally.
Hmm.
Because
You'll
there's
get
nothing
there.
that says American patriotism like imperial measurements.
No, yep. We should really rename that.
Maybe,
Yeah, we should
maybe.
call it.
Well, you know what? I mean, we could name it after Trump.
We could. I was thinking like the Grand Army of the Potomac measurements.
Maybe.
Um,
Okay, maybe. No,
yeah,
I thought.
but I think the Trump Kennedy measurement system has a really great, fantastic ring to it.
I
That's
think it
something we
does
should talk
too.
about.
I think it
Hmm.
does too. We could start measuring things in Trumps.
We could, we could. Have you ever seen the headlines that are like local news stations across America are so determined to not measure things in Celsius, they'll measure things in everything else, and so there will be like a crater on a highway somewhere that's measured in three washing machines. It's three washing machines long. Or like, oh, this is like two elephants worth of popcorn. They're hilarious, hilarious
Well, I
headlines.
mean, you used to have hogsheads, right? You know,
Hmm.
horsepower, hogsheads. I mean, you know,
Hmm.
why not, right?
Yeah, but
Anyway, before I forget, there was a great headline in the Onion years and years and years and years ago, and it was like an infographic at the back of it was in
mhm,
the '90s,
sure.
and it said metric system thriving in America's inner cities, and it has a picture of a 9 millimeter, a kilo of cocaine,
Yeah.
and a syringe with
That's hilarious.
Anyway, just one
Oh,
of those great old the '90s
yeah.
Onion, man, was hard to beat. It was so great.
Oh, absolutely. No,
Uh,
the onion is fantastic.
um,
Absolutely.
but
A
anyway,
wholehearted politics in the past desert dialogues endorsement for 90s era The Onion headlines.
right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I do use the Onion Our Dumb Century book, which
Mm-hmm.
is the book, if anybody's read it or knows of it, is where they pretend that the Onion has been around since like the 1870s.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to like the big front pages of the Onion in the 20th century. And so,
Yeah.
you know, when the Titanic
Mm-hmm.
sinks and they're all ridiculously hilarious. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it'll have like uh the when the Second World War begins, it
Mm-hmm.
says it has WA in the largest font possible, that it takes up the entire page, and then a
Mm-hmm.
little hyphen at the end and R on the next page. You know, stuff like that. And anyway,
Yeah.
just if you ever, I use that sometimes in my class as sort of a way to introduce a topic, because usually the jokes in it are, and I kind of, and I say that like in my history classes, and I say, listen, if at the end of the class you can get some of these jokes, then I've
Mm-hmm.
done my job. Because
Oh,
to get these jokes, you really have to understand the period.
mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. That's a fantastic teaching device. I'm going to start evangelizing for that as well. That's really awesome.
yeah,
And you know, Joseph Pulitzer and Gordon Bennett and all of their contemporaries, they'd be proud. They'd be proud of their
I think
legacy
so.
via the yeah.
I think so. All right.
Mhm.
Well, enough of this banter.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It is
Yeah,
2026.
it is.
And
It is. Well, it is 2026 when this will actually post. It's
yes.
still technically 2025.
Yeah,
It is
we
the
are
morning of New Year's Eve.
we've got well, it's different. I'm in South Dakota. Rob's in Arizona. So we both have a different number of hours until the new year. But
I've got one more hour than you have.
yes, but
Yeah.
in any case, we are excitedly awaiting 2026 because that means once again it is election year in America.
Yep.
Didn't we all miss it?
Yeah. You know what? It's been too long.
It's been
I have
too
not thought about politics enough.
no.
Right?
And that is a thought that is sweeping across America. If you look at
Exactly.
the
If there's
research
anything
poll,
people are grateful for, it's
hmm
that they want more of their Hulu like watching to
uh-huh.
be interrupted by political ads.
Oh,
People are going without. People are
absolutely.
going without this holiday season.
They are much like the Europeans who are forced to work in Celsius. They are bereft
Yeah.
of political information being pumped into their social media feeds. And so
Uh,
and now that it is 2026, we are proud to be the first podcast that is bringing you political information since the day after Election Day in November of 2024.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And but on that note, we have an announcement to make
Yes,
about politics in the past in 2026. We
I'm
are
very excited.
launching the first ever, to the best of my knowledge,
Hmm.
the first ever fantasy midterm election draft
That we
contest
are
thing.
in
I
the
need I need
proudest.
to workshop the branding a little bit.
Yeah. Well, in the proudest spirit of Arizona State University, we are innovating. We are
Hmm.
innovating the ways that you can interact with politics.
Right,
And so we are bringing you a fantasy draft for the midterm elections.
right. It's gonna be it'll be open to everybody,
Hmm.
and we're gonna details will follow.
Yes.
We're still hammering out a couple of things, but the idea basically being is that sometime in before the end of February, and I don't have the exact date yet, people will be able to submit a list of senatorial or gubernatorial candidates, a
Hmm.
roster of 8. There's a couple of guidelines as to how you have to pick them,
Hmm.
and for every election they win, including a primary, you get 5 points.
Yep.
And the team that has the most points at the end will get some prize. Not totally sure what that prize is going to be at this point, but
Hmm.
we do want to get that out there right now. The 2026 fantasy midterm contest, okay,
Yes.
which is being pioneered here at the
Hmm.
Center for American Institutions
Yes. Much
and
like
Politics of the
septum
Past.
technology in Germany in 1907, we are pioneering this initiative.
We are. We are. Not sure how it's going to go. There's probably a reason nobody's done this before in the past,
Yep.
but we are going to try. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
see how it goes. And
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm already starting to put my roster together.
I am as well. And
Uh,
at some point, there will also be us intrepid staff members at the Center for American Institutions
well,
that
we're
get.
not sure about that yet. Let's hold off on that part of the
Okay, well, we're
announcement.
going to hold off
Let's
on
hold
that.
off on that part. We don't
Fair.
want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. I'm
Sure.
willing
Yeah.
to announce the first little bit, but there
Yes.
might be more coming. There might
There
not
might be more.
be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it depends on
Mm-hmm.
how persuasive I am, frankly.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, and anyway, so but anyway, there's lots of fun to come in 2026. The fantasy draft is just one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And really excited for this. Really excited to see how it turns out and seeing the choices people make.
Yep.
But in the spirit of like a fantasy midterm draft, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's incumbent upon us to maybe talk about a couple of these races.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
we have absolutely we know everything about South Dakota now.
Yes.
If you're curious about South Dakota, go back an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have uh, we have discussed South Dakota politics with more granularity and more intensive attention to detail than I would wager any but perhaps, 5 or 6 people in the history of the world.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
right. Yeah.
here's the thing. We need to brand ourselves. We are the premier South Dakota politics podcast based outside of South Dakota.
Oh, absolutely. We
I'm
are
comfortable saying that.
the number one not South Dakota politics podcast.
Precisely.
Hmm.
Precisely.
Yes.
But today we're not going to talk about South Dakota. I don't
No.
think.
Well, you never know. It just comes
Sure.
out sometimes.
Sure.
But we're
Sure.
going to do
All
our best.
roads lead to Rome. All political roads lead to Sioux
Mhm.
Falls.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Maybe
Hmm.
Rapid City would have been a better choice there, but
Yeah, well, all roads, they all lead to Pier except either of the interstates that run through South Dakota.
that's how you know it's a really important commercial capital that your political capital is.
Absolutely.
It's like Jeff City
Pier
in
has a
Missouri.
gas station with attendants that'll come out and fuel up your car.
Oh, you got full service gas
They
station.
got full service gas stations in Pierce, South Dakota. So that's
Wow.
yeah. Take
So
that.
it's Oregon, New Jersey, and Pierce, South Dakota,
Yeah, take that, St. Paul, Minnesota, or Des
right?
Moines. You don't
Well,
have full service gas stations, and that's why there are no politics podcasts that are concerned with your doings.
well, I assume this is not the case in Pierre, but
Yeah.
Pierre, like there are self-service stations as well. I'm assuming in Pierre,
Oh
it's not
yeah,
just.
it's just the one full
So it's
service
not like
gas.
Oregon and New Jersey, and in New Jersey, I think it's slightly changed recently, but until
Hmm.
about 8 years ago, it was illegal in Oregon
Yeah.
and New Jersey to pump your own gas.
No, in Pierre it is just the one full service gas
Yeah,
station.
that's quaint. That's lovely. I'd go.
Hmm.
My wife would go there. She hates pumping gas.
Oh, absolutely. No,
Right.
it's fantastic.
Oh,
And
hold on.
then
We said we weren't going to talk about South Dakota.
all roads lead to it. And you know what? If I could remember the name of the gas station that is the full service gas station,
Well, we
I
are
would.
available for sponsorship,
Yeah. But
and we can talk about that gas station on every episode for the right
yeah.
price.
Hmm. Yeah.
Anyway,
They will pay us $10 to $20
we're
for
losing
that.
people, Jack. We're losing people.
Yeah.
We're losing people. All right. I want to focus on a couple of very key Senate races today,
Hmm.
particularly Maine and Texas, and
Yep.
maybe North Carolina if we have time.
Hmm.
But Maine and Texas might take up most of our time, I think.
Yes.
And we're not going to talk much about the governor's races. Any gubernatorial races. It's just going to focus on these two key Senate races.
Hmm.
Because there's three primaries, three important primaries for these two
Hmm.
races.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I think they're really interesting. And as you can see, I'm wearing my Graham Platner sheet.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
You showed up dressed to impress.
I showed
Did
up
you?
dressed like an oysterman from Oxford, Maine.
Yes. Did you, in addition to your Graham Platner esque flannel shirt, did you get your Graham Platner esque tattoos? Did you do the full? Did you do the full Graham Platner?
I did not. I did
Well,
not.
this is not you.
Oh,
That shows a lack of commitment, and we're gonna have to work on that.
I didn't know where you were going with that. That was really funny. Care to
Oh,
explain that joke to people who don't know it?
yeah. So Graham Platner is a first-time political candidate, a veteran who is running in the Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate seat, currently held by Susan Collins in Maine, which will be up in 2026. And I think this was about 30 years ago, if I'm remembering
Or
correctly.
20 years
Um,
ago.
20 years ago, pardon me. He was serving in Eastern Europe and was inebriated with some of his fellow service members late one night, and he got a tattoo that he didn't know what was. And now, 20 years later, he's running for office, and it turns out that that tattoo is a Nazi symbol.
Yeah.
And so, um, Graham Platner's campaign, which previously had been going pretty well and capturing national attention, and had really sort of looked like it had potential for success, has now been derailed by the fact that he is a Nazi symbol permanently inked upon his body.
He has now apparently covered it up.
Oh, he is now, pardon me,
Yeah.
it is now, other ink has covered up this
Is
Nazi symbol.
is
Yeah.
covering it up. I mean,
Hmm.
we'll probably get into this a little bit
Hmm.
as we go on, but I'm just to make sure that we are fully up to date on what Graham
Hmm.
Platner's body looks like at the
Yes.
current moment.
Hmm.
He has claimed at least that
Yes.
it's been covered up with another tattoo. Now, maybe that other tattoo is another Nazi symbol.
We don't know.
We don't
We
know.
don't know. But
Yeah,
when we do know, we'll bring that
we will
information to you.
bring that information to you. Yeah.
Hmm.
So anyway, I mean, I think in Maine, it's probably worth, we'll maybe we'll open with a discussion on Platner because I do, I mean, we're already
Hmm.
into it, and I do
Yeah.
think he's probably the most intriguing of the two Democratic candidates there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He's bringing the most color to the race.
Hmm.
As you mentioned, Platner's a first-time political candidate running for Senate,
Hmm.
which is a big jump.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And as you also said, the campaign, at least until the Totenkopf tattoo became
Hmm.
evident, was going really well.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think it was going so well?
Graham Platner, with he a working class background, and he didn't come from any of the big population centers in Maine. He wasn't from Portland. He wasn't from Augusta, and he really appealed to this interest in the Democratic Party to move away from uh, sort of Bill Clinton-esque liberalism policies and the sort of sense amongst certain, especially online elements of the Democratic Party, that the party had sort of been captured by corporate interest and had
Yeah.
strayed away from its FDR or LBJ roots as a working class party. And Graham Platner, I think because he wasn't from one of Maine's big cities, because he was a working class man, and I think because he hadn't served in office before, and so he wasn't a member of the political establishment, really appealed to that wing of the Democratic Party that's seeking that more FDR-esque return. Unfortunately, when you haven't run for office, you are able to appeal to that wing, but you also haven't been vetted. And
Hmm.
so then you get things like a high flying candidate for a premier Senate race ends up with a Nazi tattoo. And so if Graham Platner had previously run for the state legislature or a local office, that would have come out and that would have been dispensed with. And so you can argue about whether or not the Democratic Party should move in that more leftist, more FDR-esque direction. But by not, supporting individuals who have previously served in office, you're almost inviting these sort of news stories to come out and then become national stories because, by definition, you're running people who haven't been vetted for political office before.
Right. Right. I
Mhm.
mean, and this is one of the things. Like when we pivot to Texas and we talk about the Senate primary there, the Democratic
Mhm.
Senate primary there, you're dealing with two people who've run before,
Oh,
who are
absolutely.
vetted, right?
Mhm.
And but Platner, as you mentioned, is yeah. This is a
Mhm.
danger that happens when somebody hasn't been vetted before. Actually,
Yeah.
sorry, one of the things I was just checking on my phone is I was thinking because you're right, he's not from one of the two major cities.
Mhm.
And however, and this is I think where people who um maybe people who live in parts of Maine maybe don't appreciate even and people who are outside of Maine certainly won't appreciate is he's from the coast. Okay, he's from south of Route 1 in Maine. And that's kind of the thin strip that runs up the coast where there's a lot of the
Mhm.
tourist villages, old fishing villages, that kind of thing. If you're going to
Yeah.
go visit Maine, you're probably going to go up Route 1 and you're probably going to go to one of those kind of
Mhm.
bucolic villages.
Mhm.
And it for people who live in those places, they sometimes feel like they are from like the rustic part of the world.
Sure.
But they're really not.
Yeah.
They're from an affluent part that
Mhm.
kind of larps rusticness
Yeah.
to a degree.
Mhm.
I'm not saying everyone there's affluent. No,
Yeah.
not my point. Not my point at all. But it tends to have higher education in those
Mhm.
places. It tends to be more cosmopolitan. It has to be. It's
Mhm.
drawing tourists, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then, but that it, so there's this maybe this belief that the people who live there are sort of more in touch with like they're touching grass to use the Gen Z expression in a way that
Mhm.
people in the professional centers are not. But they're
Yeah.
really this is cottage country for the professional
Oh,
class.
absolutely. It's like the Gilmore Girls, the town that the Gilmore Girls is set in, which I'm now forgetting the name of,
Stars
and
Hollow. I'm not
there you
proud. I know
go.
it. I'm not proud. I know it. Stars Hollow.
Thank
Yeah.
you. It's like it's precisely that with all of these tourists, and you've
Right.
got money coming in a way
Right.
that you just don't in up in northern Maine.
Whereas if you go
And
north of Route 2, it's a different
yeah,
world, right?
oh,
It's a different
absolutely.
world. It's the hinterland. The tourists don't go there,
No,
right?
no,
Which,
they're not up in.
unsurprisingly, north
Mhm.
of Route 2 votes Republican.
Yeah.
That was Paul LePage's like
Mhm.
major like uh
Mhm.
base was north of
Yeah.
2.
And Jared Golden, props to him, has the Democrat who holds on to that House seat only does so because he is probably the most moderate Democrat in the United States House of Representatives.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And but that's the seat that votes for Trump because
Hmm.
Maine's got the split
Yeah.
uh, you know, Maine splits through electoral votes.
Hmm.
Whereas south of 1, where again you're dealing with this group that might think they touch grass, they might think they're rustic. The Stars Hollow part of Maine, I love
Yeah.
that. I do love that.
Hmm.
That's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, is the most democratic part of Maine,
Absolutely.
the most
Hmm.
rock ribbed, absolutely
Hmm.
ideological left wing part of Maine,
Hmm.
and Platner comes from there. So I
Yeah.
think there's this notion that some people have that here's a guy who can speak to Republicans just by look because he's suitably hirsute.
Hmm.
That here's a guy who can speak to Republicans because he kind of looks like a Republican.
Yeah, he's wearing a flannel shirt, and he's tall and he's got that sort of beard going
He's a
on.
veteran,
Hmm.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, he got a Nazi tattoo to the left. They're like, oh, he sounds like a Republican.
Yeah.
But he's not. He
He's
doesn't live in
not.
that milieu.
No.
I mean,
And,
now
and
there's nothing. Now there's nothing like saying like trying to speak about populism. There's
hmm.
nothing like trying to have credibility among populists and using the word milieu.
That's my mom will occasionally give me some crap about my future potential political career by calling me an intellectual elitist, and then I'll tell her, "How dare you impugn my plutocratic bona fides?" Um,
Yeah,
and that it gets her every time.
that's good. That's good.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, That's good. Yeah, but anyway, so Plattner's from, he's not an oysterman by trade. I
Hmm.
can't remember what his family. I think they're business owners in
Yeah.
the somewhere on the
Hmm.
main shore, along the Maine coast. He was a veteran,
Hmm.
which we've talked about. Served. There is something that he does that really bothers me, and he's
Hmm.
done this a couple of times. Is that he, especially in the wake of Trump's uh, ratcheting up pressure on Venezuela.
Hmm.
Um, what he has done is he's kind of compared that to George W. Bush's decision to invade Iraq in 2003. And he says, George W. Bush voted to send me and people like me into Iraq. It's like,
Hmm.
dude, you didn't enlist until after the war started.
Yeah.
You knew the war was going on.
Hmm.
And then you enlisted. And then
Hmm.
you served. The guy volunteered to serve
Yeah.
overseas.
Which is admirable. A very
Sure,
admirable
don't get
thing to
me
do.
wrong.
Hmm.
Totally fine. But he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth here.
Yeah. Hmm.
Which,
No,
I mean,
that.
he's a politician. He's allowed to do that.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's just one of those things that just kind of gets my goat. It's like, just,
Uh-huh.
you don't have to tell this lie.
Yeah. No,
You don't have
absolutely.
to tell the lie. You can, in fact, you know what? This is maybe even a better story if the Plattner team is listening. Is to
Hmm.
say, I volunteered because I really believed in this.
Hmm.
And then I became disillusioned
Yes.
when I was there.
No, absolutely.
That's a more compelling story. And then you don't
Absolutely.
have to friggin' lie.
Hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, but Plattner, he's brought some people in from the Mamdani campaign
Hmm.
to assist, and he's definitely, you can see that message working, or being pumped out there. Talks a lot about affordability,
Hmm.
um, which I don't know how much affordability is an issue for people who live on the Maine coast. It might be, probably is.
Hmm.
Um, and there is this sense that, although, I mean, I was kind of making fun of the idea that somehow he could appeal to people north of Route 2 in Maine,
Hmm.
um, I don't know that he can appeal to a broad swath of the electorate out there, but I do think he's appealing to Democrats up there,
Yes, I would agree.
right?
Um, but
And so
yeah.
he's going to bring the Democrats from south of 1 and from
Hmm.
north of 2 into this primary race.
Hmm.
And Janet Mills, his opponent, seems to be the candidate of the middle, which is where you'll find Banger and
Hmm.
Portland primarily.
Yeah. And I think Janet Mills, and this is such a fascinating primary to watch because Janet Mills, in my mind, really represents the anti-Graham Platner, where
Yes.
she is the incumbent governor. She has been in politics in Maine for quite a while. Um, she's older, represents that establishment politics that the sort of online left and certain elements of the left don't like. But also, she doesn't have any Nazi tattoos, for
Not that we
starters.
know of.
Now, well, if she did, somebody would have found out about it. It would have been mentioned
Sure. I
in a
mean, she was attorney general for like 3 terms, and then governor
yeah.
for, member of the Maine House for a long
Oh yeah.
time, governor. I mean, she's
Hmm.
as vetted and as establishment as they come in Maine.
Absolutely. And so when you're talking about like scandals that might pop up, that's not happening with Janet Mills. Um, it or very likely won't happen. And when you're talking about things like message discipline, you're just talking about how Plattner's messaging is opening him up to all of these vulnerabilities that he doesn't. It's like an own goal that he's inviting, and so she's not going to make those same mistakes. And so when you look at the that main Senate race, or pardon me, that main primary race, it really is an exercise in opposites, which is what makes it so fascinating to discuss.
I agree. I mean, you're watching the Civil War and the Democratic Party play out here
Oh yeah.
in this
Hmm.
Democratic primary, and one of the things that's interesting about Plattner, and I think the Texas comparison. I'll let you know who I think the appropriate Texas comparison is in a minute.
Hmm.
Uh, it might not be who people think I'm referring to,
Sure.
but what he's doing, and this is the strategy, is that he's trying to lump Mills and Susan Collins in together. So they're the
Mm-hmm.
same.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, Janet Mills stood up to Donald Trump on trans girls in sports at
Mm-hmm.
high schools, but she didn't. You know, she hasn't. She didn't sign the bill that would have prevented ICE from operating in certain parts of Maine.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't campaigned. She didn't campaign for the big red flag law.
Mm-hmm.
She preferred a yellow flag law,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Platner enthusiastically supported the red flag law that was on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's trying to say, listen, she may as well be a Republican.
Yeah.
Or maybe not a Republican, she's an elite. She's of
She's
the
an elite.
elite class. And
She's
so
a
Susan
Chuck
Collins, so
Schumer.
what's the difference?
Yeah, she's a Chuck Schumer, Dick Durbin Democrat who, when
Yeah.
the chips are down, isn't in your current corner, is in the corner of big corporations and the elites.
Was
And
really,
that,
she's a Bill Bradley Democrat.
mm-hmm.
If we're going to
Well,
be really clear on
yeah.
this, she's a Bill Bradley Democrat.
Oh, yeah. Or like harkening back to George Mitchell. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
And
mean,
so,
she's a left liberal policy wonk who's
mhm.
highly
Oh,
professional,
oh, yeah.
who is,
Well
she is
respected.
the, she's getting she's trying to get lumped in with the Clinton group. That's not fair. She's more of an
Hmm.
Obamaite than she is a
Hmm.
Clintonite, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd agree with that.
Partly because of her generation. She's
Hmm.
more left wing than the Clintons ever were,
Hmm.
than at least Bill was.
Hmm.
And she's very comfortable, I think, in that professional class of policy wonk Obama Democrat. Like, you could imagine her in 2012 or between like 2009 and 2012
Hmm.
getting really excited about like healthcare reform, and
Oh,
like
absolutely.
at the granular level,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And she's a so she's a and her base is the professional class of Maine, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. And
Uh,
that, and I think that that sort of speaks to another one of Plattner's vulnerabilities, where because Mills's base is that sort of professional class, that's a natural fundraising base as well. And so, as Plattner's been trying to fundraise, it's been tough for him to sort of get money from that class. And so, as he's looking for fundraising opportunities, he's had to move further and further online
right.
to, leftists, this leftist ecosystem across the country. And so he's had, as a result, had to play more into those stereotypes
Yeah.
so he can get their money. So he has to play in this is the sort of candidate that leftists in Astoria, Queens want.
Sure. Sure. I
Hmm.
mean, although we should be clear, he has a very strong ally in
Yes.
Maine politics who's,
Hmm.
in Maine, not, I mean,
Hmm.
Bernie's maybe his largest benefactor, but we'll
Hmm.
leave that aside for a second. In Maine, the current Speaker of the House,
Hmm.
Tony Jackson,
Hmm. Yeah.
Tony Jackson, is running for governor,
Hmm.
and he has a big ecosystem in Maine, and he and
Hmm.
Plattner are running appear like they're running like on a slate.
No, and I appreciate that clarification. That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point.
But he is not. But you're right. He doesn't have the white shoe law firms in Bangor or
Hmm.
in Portland,
No,
um,
yeah,
that
yeah,
are. Though he might have white shoe law firms in New York City.
yeah. And
Uh,
it's the internet has made the political fundraising so fascinating
yeah.
to look at. Yeah, where that money's coming from.
Now the polling that we talked about South Dakota, how difficult it
Mhm.
is to poll,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
Because not a lot of money to be made in it,
Hmm.
and that it's a so you're not going to get to poll a lot.
No.
You might be somebody who polls once every few months.
Hmm.
At the end of the summer, Plattner appeared to have a pretty big lead
Hmm.
on Mills, but that appears to have winnowed down quite a bit.
Yes.
Part of that could be the Nazi tattoo.
That'll tend to reduce support for
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
And we should also be I should also be clear. One of the reasons that the Nazi tattoo again is so um, there's two reasons. I think there's two major reasons why this is so why this is so damaging to him.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the firstly is that he's been very anti-Israel,
Mm-hmm.
and he would say I'm very anti-Netanyahu, but leaving that
Sure.
aside for a second, so he
That's a
has
different for a different podcast.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he we're talking about messaging here, so the
Mm-hmm.
distinctions maybe aren't that important. He and so he has had a hard time anyway trying to make sure that he's trying to thread a needle between being very anti-Israel, very supportive of Gaza, while
Mm-hmm.
also not alienating um, people that are Jewish, the Jewish community, people
Mm-hmm.
who are sympathetic to the Jewish community, Democrats who might be have some sympathy for Israel or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
he's had a hard time threading that needle, and the Nazi tattoo doesn't make it any easier.
No. No, absolutely not.
And the second thing that it does is that, and this is, I think, why his chief of staff resigned more
Mm-hmm.
so than anything else, is at best it reflects a horrific lack of judgment.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It was 2007, a long time ago, but he's had
Mm-hmm.
18 years to figure out what this thing on his body actually is
Yep.
and
Mm.
to remove it or
That's
to cover it up.
that is, I think, the crucial thing. That you can accept maybe in 2007, this happened and he was drunk and he didn't realize it, but the morning
He was also in Croatia, and if we're being
yeah.
honest, there's Nazi symbolism in places like Croatia
Mhm.
that
Oh,
would be
absolutely.
that would be available. And like I
Mhm.
love Croatia, Croatia's awesome, but
Mhm.
there is a distinct far right subculture in Croatia that if you're a dude and
Mhm.
you're drinking somewhere in downtown in
Mhm.
Croatia, you're my brain's blanking on the capital,
Sure.
Zagreb, Zagreb,
Zagreb, yeah.
yeah, in downtown Zagreb. It's
Mhm.
possible you run into a tattoo parlor where this happens.
Yes.
I think it's a little
Oh,
weird, but I'm willing to accept it. But that was 18 years ago.
that was 18 years ago. How a week later, because his argument was, well, I didn't know what it was. And so my question is, a week later, you've sobered up, you've recovered from your hangover, you have this mystery symbol on your body. How do you not look up what that is?
Yeah.
Like, you just, oh, well, this is on my body now, and I guess I'm gonna live in ignorance about it for the next 18 years. That, I just don't buy that. I don't buy that at
No.
all.
My
Mm-hmm.
and you know what? And here's a dude who again he talks out of both sides of his mouth here, right?
Mm-hmm.
He, one of his justifications for why he went to war in the first
Mm-hmm.
place in Iraq was something like, maybe I read too much Hemingway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're reading Hemingway,
Mm-hmm.
which proves that you're not you're trying to present yourself at least
Mm-hmm.
as a well-read sort of person.
Mm-hmm.
And despite your external oysterman costume, okay, that
Yes.
I'm currently using too,
Yes. Mhm.
um, and you don't have any notion of what this might be. You don't know that there's a far right subculture in Croatia. You don't know that maybe you accidentally got a stupid tattoo that you need to cover up, and yet
Mhm.
you're the guy who reads Hemingway.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, I think the reality is, I mean, this is my own assessment of it, is
Mhm.
that he did look it up. He didn't know what he
Mhm.
got at the time.
Yeah. I'll
He
accept that.
Yeah, he did look it up. He found out what it was and thought it was kind of funny.
Mhm.
And so he was kind of like, the Nazi tattoo. And he just sort of assumes that people didn't like, because he wasn't running for office, it could be kind
Yeah.
of a fun bar story, I guess, would
Mhm.
be his perspective, right? He'd
Yeah.
sort of say, want to see my Nazi tattoo? I'm not really, you know me well enough to know I'm not a Nazi, but you want to see my Nazi tattoo? Like,
Mhm.
I think that's what happened.
Yeah. And it wouldn't have been a problem had he not turned around and ran
And
for
run
the
for Senate in Maine,
Mhm. Yeah.
you
It just
know?
it yeah.
And like,
It wouldn't have come up.
it wouldn't have mattered. But
Mhm.
it speaks to a lack of judgment. He's
Mhm.
juvenile. And you
Mm-hmm.
want to know my other problem with the guy?
Hmm.
If being honest, he's never had a job other than soldier. And, like, he's an oysterman. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I shouldn't say he's never had a job. I want to cut that. He's had jobs. Okay, he was a
Mm-hmm.
private security contractor in Iraq. He was a soldier. He's kind of runs this oyster business,
Mm-hmm.
but he hasn't really. He admits that the oyster business doesn't really make him very much money.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's essentially living off of the oyster salary is being supplemented by his disabled veteran salary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm wondering if he's running for Senate because he needs a job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a
One
decent
of the
point.
things you do in really good vetting when you're a political party
Mm-hmm.
is that one of the things that you vet your candidates for is, are they doing this because they need a job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're trying to prevent those guys from running.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
For a whole variety of reasons, namely because they're not going to be good senators.
Precisely,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I don't, he represents a wing of the party that that people have genuine beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
and there's genuine momentum there. And I certainly don't want to impugn people's beliefs and
Yeah.
but I look, as the more research I've done into the guy, the less impressed I've been.
Yeah. Well, and I think that he gives that wing of the Democratic Party a bad name where
Yeah, sure.
you can disagree with their politics. People will disagree with their politics. But a lot of people in that wing of the Democratic Party have these deeply held beliefs.
Absolutely.
And for Graham Platner to be their representative does them a disservice. I think that they would be better served by getting all behind Sherrod Brown in Ohio, as opposed to making Graham Platner a standard bearer. But that's just one guy's opinion.
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
I hear you. And I mean, the other things that I think is funny about the guy, he really hates Fetterman.
Mm-hmm.
He hates Fetterman, I think, more than he hates anybody.
Well, and like John, we could have a whole podcast
We might
about
have to
John.
talk about Fetterman. I'll wear a hoodie for that one.
Yeah, I do not, but like I knew about John Fetterman when he was still the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania, and I was very impressed with him at that specific point in time. And then he gets to the Senate, and he sort of stops all over that which made me impressed with him previously. And his shtick is now worn off, and yeah, we'll have a Fetterman
Yeah.
conversation
But I
another
mean,
time.
I think in some way, it was one tweet that I thought was actually really good by Platner's. It was just a really good, like, knife. Because
Hmm.
he's got that talent, right?
Yeah, hmm
He's got
he's
that
got a
talent.
wish.
And
Yeah.
he was at some labor rally and he was in a suit.
Hmm.
Platner was in a
Yeah.
suit and he says, I can at least wear a suit and will wear one in the Senate, unlike some people.
You know what? He got Fetterman there.
Yeah, he got him there, right? Anyway,
Hmm.
all
Got
right.
him
We don't
on
want to
one.
spend the entire time talking about Platner. We barely even talked about Janet Mills, which is too bad,
No.
because I
Hmm.
actually think she's a really interesting. She's a very professional candidate.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and the anyway, what's your thought? Do you think
Yeah.
who's
Well, and I think Janet Mills's great sort of great strength in this race is that we didn't spend the last 20 minutes talking about her and dissecting her
precisely,
messaging failures and dissecting her
precisely?
scandals because she isn't making those failures and she doesn't have those scandals and she has that smooth sailing
Yeah,
in that race.
I mean,
Yeah, that's her.
if I was in Maine, I probably wouldn't be voting in the Democratic primary. But I
Hmm.
mean, I think among professional Democrats, at least, there's a reason, why she is the standard bearer there, and
Hmm.
is you say, there's not we know there's not going to be a lot of scandals coming out of her
Hmm.
office,
Yeah,
or out of her campaign.
she's a good
Do
safe
you
bet.
do you have any sense? Do you want to make a prediction?
I think Janet Mills will win it. I think that when you look at the polling trends, she's been polling much better and been really closing the gap. And with Graham Platner, I just somewhere in my gut tells me something else is going to happen
Yeah,
or something else is going to come out. It's
yeah,
that uncertainty. that really makes his campaign, it sort of lives on that knife's edge. And so I think at the end of the day, Janet Mills is going to win it. And that ultimately, I think, is the safest play for the Democratic Party, where to beat Susan Collins in what is a Democratic leaning state and what is likely to be a Democrat leaning year is a safe candidate. You don't need somebody who has a high floor or a high ceiling but a low floor. You need a safe bet.
You know,
And
the
Janet.
way to beat Susan Collins. I mean,
Mhm.
Platner. There's a way Platner could beat Collins,
Oh, yes.
right?
And,
And the
and,
way that he
and
does that is by getting Republicans to vote for him.
mhm.
Because the I can tell, I'm sure, I don't know Maine well enough to make this statement, but
Mhm.
I can probably guess
Yeah.
that if he were that if he were a little less woke,
Mhm.
or a lot less woke maybe,
Mhm.
but still had the general Mamdani-ish left-wing
Yeah.
politics,
Uh-huh.
um, and he were the Democratic nominee, he could run a pincer operation between those south of one and those north of two against those in the cities.
Oh,
And those
absolutely.
in the cities would be reluctantly backing Collins, even the Democrats there,
Mhm.
right, without much enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But that's not
Mhm.
going to happen.
No.
No.
It's
So
just not.
anyway,
Yeah.
well, I don't know if it's too bad. I mean, it might be good for Susan Collins.
Yeah.
And I like Susan Collins, so I got no beef with Susan Collins. So,
Sure. Yeah.
all right. So that's Maine, and we'll talk
Mhm.
more about the general, I guess, when we get closer to it.
Yes.
We took 30 minutes talking about that, about the
Mhm.
Maine. I kind of budgeted 15 minutes, and we took 30. So maybe
Yeah.
that.
Well, do you and that's I mean, there's just so much fascinating primary season to me is so much more
It's so
fascinating
good.
than general
It's
election
so good.
season.
I fully agree. I fully
So
agree.
much more interesting.
All
Yeah.
right, let's pivot
Mhm.
to Texas.
Yes.
And in Texas, we have two competitive primaries.
We have two fascinating competitive primary races. Do you want to start with the Democrats or the Republicans?
Let's talk about the Republicans. We've just talked a lot about the Democrats. Let's talk
Yes.
about the
Mhm.
Republicans here, and then we'll finish with the Democratic race.
Mhm. Yes.
All right, Jack. Do you want to give us a lay of the land
Yeah. So
on the Texas GOP senatorial race?
So for starters, you've got John Cornyn. John Cornyn is the incumbent U.S. senator. He has been the incumbent for quite a while. Has served in Senate leadership. Problem is, he's not all that popular in Texas, at least amongst Texas Republicans, as it turns out, because Ken Paxton, who is currently the Attorney General of Texas, has thrown his hat in the ring. Ken Paxton is one of the most divisive politicians that I have ever heard of and ever encountered. That's saying something these days. Ken Paxton is a true MAGA soldier. Has all kinds of scandals behind him. But he is incredibly popular
Yeah.
amongst that MAGA base. And currently, correct me if I'm wrong, I think currently is polling to win the primary.
Yes.
So Ken Paxton is the front runner ahead of incumbent John Cornyn.
Well, I mean, I
And then,
think Ken Paxton has better name recognition in Texas, frankly.
oh,
Even over
absolutely.
Cornyn, who's
Hmm.
who is again, I think, 4-term senator,
Yeah. Hmm.
maybe 5-term.
Yeah. John Cornyn, who very like was a genuine competitor to John Thune to be the
Yeah, he
Senate
was the other
majority.
guy.
He was the other horse in that race.
Yeah, I mean, and
Um,
former whip, right?
Oh
So as
yeah.
you said, he served in leadership.
Mhm.
He
And so then,
is. Yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just. But Paxton is interesting because Paxton's very interesting, but
Oh, fascinating guy.
Paxton is the. You'd be hard pressed. I'd be hard pressed to name an attorney general in any state in the United States that I'm not currently living in
Mm-hmm.
at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I know who Ken Paxton is.
Everybody who spends time in politics knows who Ken Paxton is.
The guy has
And
done
like,
more. Like the guy's profile, like
mm-hmm.
the guy's profile is higher than most senators and most governors,
Oh,
most
absolutely.
cabinet ministers.
Absolutely.
or cabinet members, you know,
Hmm.
ministers. That's
No,
my Canadian speaking cabinet secretaries. Yeah,
there you go. There
yeah,
you go. That's like you talking about Celsius.
right.
Um, Ken Paxton is all encompassing, and he just sucks up the air in any political debate, race, conversation he's in. And the guy like has disagreements and enemies within the Republican Party. He was impeached.
Yeah, he
He
was
didn't. He wasn't
by a
convicted
Republican House.
by a Republican House.
Yeah.
He was impeached, but he was not convicted. And so when you look at Ken Paxton and the Republican Party, we've talked in previous podcasts and previously in this podcast about a civil war happening in the Democratic Party, and it is. Don't get me wrong. But there is an incredible civil war happening specifically within the Texas Republican Party, in the fact that Ken Paxton currently looks like he's going to knock out John Cornyn in the Senate primary is very indicative of where that civil war, who has the upper hand in that conflict.
Well, for sure. And I mean, listen, it ain't over yet.
Hmm.
You know, the primaries in March, I believe.
Hmm.
Right. And I'm just trying to, Wesley Ryan is the third, Wesley Bryan. Sorry. What's the gentleman's name?
Wesley Hunt.
Sorry. Pardon me. The third guy just,
Wesley Hunt is his name.
pardon me?
Wesley Hunt.
Wesley Hunt. Jeez, I don't know why I wanted
Yeah.
to. I had a brain fart. That's why I went to my phone. I was like Wesley
No, that's
something, but
right.
yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
he's an interesting third guy in this race
Yeah.
too. And
He's
there's some
also.
polling that has all three in a dead heat.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean,
But name recognition
Wes.
alone is going to hurt him because I forgot his
Yeah.
name.
No, absolutely. In like, I think Wesley Hunt's big problem is there's only room for one non-Cornyn candidate, and then also there's only room for one non-Paxton candidate. In some races, there is room to sort of run to the right and then run to the middle and then run to the right and run to the middle and sort of collect support from both ends. But there is so much has John Cornyn has just been in Texas politics for so long, and Ken Paxton is just such a figure in Texas politics that I don't really they both suck up all of the oxygen in
Sure,
that
but, you know,
race.
but I just want to. So I think this tripartite race is so interesting because I actually do think it represents three specific factions
Okay, this
in
is
the
interesting.
National Republican Party. And
Mhm.
I think it's worth dissecting that for a moment.
Mhm.
Cornyn is the conservative Bush era Republican,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
I mean,
Mhm.
John Cornyn, if this was 2007,
Mhm.
every John Cornyn would be the bête noir of
Mhm.
every progressive in this country,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
He's steadfastly pro-life,
Mhm.
steadfastly got on, on anti-gun control, right?
Mhm.
He wants to lower every, he wants to lower every tax he's ever seen, basically. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm being a little
Yeah.
silly here, but he is from the most extreme Bush era, and I'm using the word extreme wrongly here. The most enthusiastic Bush, wing of the of the Republican Party in the Bush era,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Policy guy,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
But on the he would have been considered on the right edge of that.
He sort of reminds me of Dick Cheney. Would that
Yeah, I
comparison?
don't know about that. Yeah, I
Well,
can see why you're saying that, but I don't
yeah.
think so.
Okay.
Because Cornyn is more Cheney. Cheney is less ideological
Okay.
than
Sure.
Cornyn,
Mhm.
or
And you
was
know
less
certainly more
ideological.
about this than I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was less ideological than Cornyn.
Okay.
At least on a lot of key issues. Cornyn
Sure.
was he would have been accused of being a dogmatic
Mhm.
conservative in the 2000s, right? I'm
Mhm.
sure he was.
Yes.
Um, he he represents that Bush era very conservative wing of the party.
Mhm.
Frankly, the wing that Mitch McConnell came out of, though Mitch McConnell I think is less was less
Mhm.
ideological than Cornyn.
Yes.
But still,
Mhm.
um, but the one, can what, maybe you've probably done this research, but what do you think's the one thing policy position he took in the Bush era Republican? that is getting them into trouble now with the Texas electorate. A long time ago.
Long time ago. Might that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Very, very pro-immigration.
There you go. That's
You
it.
know, and in the
Mhm,
Bush era, and people might not remember this, but the
mhm,
conservatives were often in the Senate and in the House, the people who
mhm,
were on that really more ideological conservative wing of the Bush era
mhm,
conservatism tended to be pretty pro-immigration,
mhm,
and also would talk about the importance of not of some degree of protection for undocumented people
mhm,
and illegal immigrants.
mhm,
So, Paxton is pulling out these old speeches and running them nonstop, right?
mhm.
Trying to make Cornyn, certainly making Cornyn uncomfortable. But anyway,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have you have the legacy of the Bush era,
Yeah.
right? You could almost you know who he's like? Mike Pence.
Yes, that is a fantastic comparison.
That's
Yeah.
who he's like,
Mhm.
Mike Pence. All right,
Yes.
without maybe the Pence, without having to have made the same decisions Pence has made.
Yes.
But he's
Mhm.
like Mike Pence.
Yes. Mike Pence pre-presidency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he represents that older wing of the party. And the
Mhm.
ones that are still around from that older wing of the party are the ones who are the more ideological,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. Yep.
For the most part. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part.
Yeah, no, Jeff
Um,
Flake is retired and Bob Corker is retired. Yeah.
so he is that so he represents the true establishment, the old establishment wing. It's not the establishment wing under Trump, but it's the old establishment wing. But they're
Mhm.
still around,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
They're still around.
Yeah. Mhm.
Paxton, as you mentioned, is the arch MAGA warrior,
Yes.
right? But, and I
Mhm.
think this is important, he's more Trump MAGA.
Mhm.
And I'm about to make the distinction on this in a second. Okay. He is all in on every aspect of Trumpism,
Yes.
which is not necessarily the same thing as MAGAism,
Mhm.
because MAGA is at this point starting to develop an identity that's separate from Trump.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Mhm.
Paxton represents the Trump part of MAGA,
Mhm.
where he's definitely not particularly ideological.
Mhm.
He's flexible ideologically,
Yes.
except on immigration and except maybe on immigration and a couple other things. But
Mhm.
he's pretty. He's willing to change his mind. He
Yes.
is his real the real glee he gets is in bashing his opponents,
Oh, yes.
right?
One of the great liberal own the libs left baiters practicing today.
Right. And I don't say that to criticize the guy. I say it
No,
out of respect. That's a
it's been an
that is
incredibly
an
successful political strategy for him.
very much so.
Incredibly
Okay.
successful.
And that
Mhm.
has allowed him to slide on some of the ethical problems that he's had,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, just like it's allowed Trump to slide on some of his ethical problems, right?
Mhm.
And a few other prominent people. So
Yeah.
he's of that wing. Wesley Hunt is of what I think is emerging as the MAGA coalition that's a little separate from Trump,
Okay.
which is
This
more
is
pure MAGA
Mhm.
in the sense of hold on, guys, you said you were for these things to the
Mhm.
Paxton wing, right? Saying,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
said you were for these things,
Mhm.
and yet you're not governing like it,
Yeah.
and you said you were going to cancel all H-1B visas or whatever that is,
Yeah.
right? And
Uh-huh.
yet, or you weren't going to bring in more, foreign students, and yet what? Trump just doubled the amount of Chinese foreign students coming into the country,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
As a couple for just a couple of examples off the top of my head. Um,
Mhm.
and maybe this is the Marjorie Taylor Greene wing of
Yes.
MAGA, right?
Mhm. I
Where
think
there
that's
it where it's a more pure distilled form of MAGA that
Mhm.
is separating itself from the larger still, I think, Trump
Mhm.
faction of MAGA, which is lining up behind JD Vance
Mhm.
in the grander scheme of things.
Yes.
But Wesley Hunt is this new creature, for lack of a better word, that is, I
Mhm.
think, representing the wing of MAGA that is maybe that are true believers.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Whereas
And and
whereas
and
With Paxton and with some of that part of the party,
mhm.
it's sometimes difficult to figure out how sincere they are.
Oh,
And I
absolutely.
think the more pure wing of MAGA has sussed that out,
Yeah.
and it is concerned about corruption,
Mhm.
is about both wings,
Yeah.
about everybody's corruption, is
Uh-huh.
concerned about the the distance perhaps that is growing between the
Mhm.
commanding heights of MAGA and the ordinary American,
Yes.
and they're trying to. I don't think that Wesley Hunt is going to be successful in this primary.
I think it's probably too early.
It's probably too early,
Mhm.
but I think it is a. I think it's an interesting, emerging, burgeoning faction.
Mhm. I agree. And I think Wesley Hunt's probably an election cycle or too early
One,
with that
I think he's
one.
one.
Yeah. Well, and I think and this is a whole nother podcast as well, the future of the Republican Party. I think that wing, the minute, because someday Donald Trump is going to pass away, and the minute that happens, the Republican Party is sort of going to go into that identity crisis, and I think that that wing of the party will be ascendant.
I think it
When
very well might be. Yeah.
yeah,
And it will
yeah,
be, yeah. So,
yeah. But yeah, in this primary, he's early. But that was a really good sort of lay of the land in that Republican Party civil war that is currently happening in Texas. And
right.
I think that it's happening in Texas to such a magnified degree. One, because everything's bigger in Texas, but two, because it was this sort of stronghold of Bushism.
Yeah.
And so you have that wing of the party thrown in sharp relief against the both burgeoning mega wings. And so when you look at Texas, that primary, much as the Democratic primary in Maine, was a fantastic look at divisions within the Democratic Party. This primary in Texas is a fantastic one to do a deep dive in for those divisions in the
Yeah.
Republican Party.
Yeah. And I mean, I mentioned earlier, I actually think the guy who is most like Platner in Texas is Paxton.
Hmm. Yes, I'd agree.
It's
I'd
not
agree.
Crockett. And I think they're going to lump Crockett in with, Platner, but that it's just
Hmm.
because they had some of the
Yeah.
same points, but I think they're very different.
Hmm.
Um, but and the reason is that both of them are trying to lump Cornyn.
Hmm.
Paxton had this great tweet. My God, it was brilliant.
Hmm.
Um, you know,
He's a great politician.
I'll say
Great
this
politician.
for the new breed of politicians. They are amazing keyboard warriors. Better than I'll ever
Hmm.
be, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
said, I look forward to March. I think the primary is March 5th or something like that. I look forward
Hmm.
to March, or no, I look forward to beating, to beating open borders, or pro gun control, um, globalist policies once and for all. And
Hmm.
then we'll focus on Jasmine Crockett.
Yes. Hmm.
I thought that was
Yeah.
really good. I was like, okay, that's
That's
a
pretty
good tweet.
fantastic. Hmm.
That's
And
a good tweet.
that's a great tweet. He's a great communicator and
Yeah.
a great politician to that base. And I think that that tweet is a great segue into the Democratic
Sure.
primary.
That's
Yeah.
a really good segue.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we have two. Sorry, before we go on it, who do you think's going to win?
Who do I think is going to
The
win that
GOP.
I think Ken Paxton's going to win. John Cornyn as we discussed, Wesley Hunt's too early, and John Cornyn is too late. There's just not votes to be won as a Bushite in the Republican Party anymore, and and so he's just it's Ken Paxton's time to shine.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Hmm.
I mean, the only hope for the Cornyn campaign is that Hunt siphons off some votes from Paxton.
Yes.
I mean, if
Hmm.
I were Cornyn, I would be funding the Hunt campaign,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Because
Absolutely.
Hunt has to go after Paxton.
Hmm. Yes.
And the Hunt campaign working with Cornyn,
Hmm.
behind the scenes could do some serious damage to Paxton. Because, I mean, as
Yes.
we mentioned, the guy has baggage,
Oh my God, the guy is baggage.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant operator, lots of, say a lot of good things about Ken Paxton,
Hmm.
as a politician. But
Hmm.
my God, does he have baggage? And does he have enemies in Texas?
Yes.
Texas
Absolutely.
Republican, he, so, I mean, that's the only way to beat him.
Hmm. No, absolutely. And because Cornyn can get the money too.
Cornyn has the money, and he started to spend, and
He
he
has the
started to see
money.
that race narrow once Cornyn is
Mhm.
spending the money.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
Paxton can raise nationally,
Hmm.
and
Well,
I mean
in Ken
Cornyn
Paxton.
can too, but
Hmm.
he's mostly going to be raising money from like the Republican Senate Leadership Fund.
Yes. Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right,
Anyway, the
moving on.
Democrats. So,
Crockett and Tallarico.
yes. What a fascinating. And I think what's really notable about this primary is you really don't. Neither Crockett, or pardon me, neither Tallarico nor Crockett are moderates in
No,
this
actually,
primary.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think there's
Hmm.
people who want to like impose that narrative on this
Hmm.
primary that somehow Tallarico represents a moderate section of.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely not.
No,
He's David
he's
Hogg.
not. No.
He's
Yeah,
like David Hogg.
yes, absolutely. He is not in any other race. If either of those candidates went in any other race, they would be the lefty candidate.
In fact,
And
Crockett
so
might be the more moderate one.
yes, no,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a really insane position for the Democratic Party to be in Texas
Right.
of all places.
Right.
If this was happening in Massachusetts, that's one thing,
Right.
but in Texas of all places,
The
just
the
fascinating to watch.
two you've got these two leftist wings
Hmm.
fighting it out to the death
Yes.
in Texas,
Hmm.
only to lose to Ken Paxton.
I disagree with you there. I think
Okay.
I think against Ken, if John Cornyn was, and perhaps he is the nominee, I think that's a different game, and I think he ultimately wins the general. Against Ken Paxton in his Democratic years, I think 2026 is going to be. It's going to be close, but I think the Democrat might. I think the Democrat has a fighting chance to win it.
I fighting chance maybe. Um okay. All right,
Yeah,
let me ask you this.
sure.
If who has the better chance? Crockett or
I think
Tallarico against
I think
Paxton? Let's assume
Tallarico.
Paxton's the candidate. Who has the better chance?
Yeah, I think Tallarico's the better candidate. I think Ken Paxton. I think Jasmine Crockett, and you can see this in the fact that Ken Paxton that in that tweet was targeting Crockett. He wasn't targeting Tallarico. Paxton wants to face Crockett.
Everybody wants
Um,
to face Crockett.
she's just such a good foil in the way that Ken Paxton is a great foil for Democrats. Jasmine Crockett's a great foil for Republicans, and Tallarico just can't be pigeonholed in the
No.
same way. He's a pastor, and I think that there is a racial component also to that
But
race.
yeah, however, Crockett is making the error, or in my opinion,
Hmm.
the error of she is inviting those criticisms
Hmm.
by
No,
making her own candidacy so wrapping it so much in race.
hmm. Yeah.
You look at her messaging. I mean, it's all about a new day for Black and Brown Texans. It's
Hmm.
I am. You wouldn't even know that white Texans exist
Yeah.
in Crockett's message, or like exist in anything other than the enemy in
Hmm.
Crockett's messaging.
Yeah. Which is, and like it's past time that somebody in the Democratic Party spoke to those voters. We've talked about leakages that the Democratic Party's had in the Rio Grande Valley. We chatted about that
Mhm.
in our a previous podcast episode. And so somebody in the Democratic Party needs to be talking to those voters. But I agree with you that you need to do it in addition to speaking with a burgeoning professional class in places like Dallas and Houston, who that suburban those suburban individuals who might now vote for Democrat, the Wine Mom Coalition.
I mean, well,
You know,
yeah, it's a. The thing is that she's running a rainbow coalition race to beat
mhm,
Tallarico,
yeah,
right?
mhm,
And that might work. I
mhm,
actually tried last night to find out Democratic member like demographics
sure,
to see if there's more, whether there's more black or more white Democrats
mhm,
in the state of Texas. I don't know. Like in South Carolina, I know, right?
yes,
But I
mhm,
don't know about Texas.
yes,
And her goal, I mean, I'm assuming if you take the Hispanic group, Hispanic and add it to the black population, it probably is larger. But
yes, mhm,
and so she's trying to run that. She's trying to win. Here's what's going to happen. She's going to try to win the Democratic primary on race. And
mhm,
then she's going to turn around in the general and complain about it being about race.
mhm,
And she's going to cry racism the entire way through after
mhm,
winning the Democratic primary on race.
yeah. And yeah, I think that in Tallarico, to add to that point, has certain advantages that a sort of typical white Democrat wouldn't. In that situation, in being a pastor, he's able to speak to an incredibly religious part of the Democratic primary electorate, perhaps the only religious part of the Democratic primary electorate still extant, which is Hispanic voters and
And black
with
voters.
issue and black voters, thank you. When you're looking at like diehard Catholics, he's almost in a way that like Raphael Warnock in Georgia is able to speak to those voters and their interests and their beliefs. James Tallarico is going to be able to do that in a way that many other white Democratic nominees just couldn't.
Maybe. I mean, Warnock, Tallarico's a gifted campaigner. Don't get me wrong.
Hmm.
Warnock's
Yeah,
the best campaigner I've seen in my lifetime.
and Warnock is something else.
He's the
He's
best
something else.
campaigner I've seen in my lifetime.
Hmm.
I lived in Georgia for
Yeah.
two Warnock election cycles, and the guy is, people. There are going to be Republicans who hear me when I say that, and they're going to say, "How can you like Raphael Warnock?" And I don't necessarily agree with Raphael Warnock on a lot of things,
Hmm.
but the guy's got game. The
Yeah.
guy is as gifted a political campaigner as I've ever seen. And he pulled off, I mean, we'll
Mhm.
talk about Georgia on another episode, but he pulled us off across the finish line last
Oh,
time.
absolutely. Hmm.
His ads are just the best ads I've ever seen.
Hmm.
And he's a great
Yeah.
anybody. But anyway, Tallarico's a
Yeah.
gifted campaigner too. And the only issue is that yes, he can provide a Christian message, but he's ultimately providing a white Presbyterian message,
That's fair.
right?
Yeah.
That I not I don't walk in white or black evangelical circles, so I can't really
Hmm.
speak to the distinction there. But I just don't know how that's going to play in the black black evangelical community.
Sure.
There are distinctions, but
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
how that'll work out. Um,
Hmm.
and but within the Hispanic, we assume that Hispanics are predominantly Catholic, and I think they are. But
Hmm.
Protestant Hispanic, but they're flocking to Protestant churches,
Oh, yes.
right?
That
And
that
so
is a.
there is the fact that he being a Presbyterian, he might actually be able to reach those voters in a way that he might struggle more to as a Catholic even. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Hmm.
But
No, yeah. That's a really
um,
important point.
so
Um.
but yeah. Anyway, just let's focus on Crockett for a moment here because I think
Hmm.
we should probably get finish talking about her before we fully jump into Tallarico.
Hmm.
Um, if she wins this Democratic race, the primary on race,
Hmm.
I I and she appears to be trying to.
Hmm. Yeah.
I have no idea how she beats Ken Paxton.
I I tend to agree. Um. And that's that I think is her sort of weakness, where I don't see like that's her great play. That's a fantastic strategy to win this Democratic
It
primary.
might be.
Yeah,
It is in some places. It is.
mhm. And so like I think that I I I think that that's sort of where she had to end up in the Democratic primary, especially because Tallarico is also to the left. If Tallarico was a moderate Democrat, then you could set up the lefty versus moderate, and then she could get through that way. But with Tallarico also being so far to the left, I think she's almost forced into that
Maybe.
position in the primary. I don't
Maybe.
know what else she
I
has.
mean, maybe.
Mhm,
But I mean, so let's just talk. Mention a little bit about
mhm.
Crockett. She's a congresswoman from Dallas.
Yes.
Um, but this is, her brand. She's very, um, she's a frequent guest on cable news.
Yes.
She's a very harsh critic of Trump and
Hmm.
one of the more acerbic critics of
Hmm.
Trump, and again, often uses race in the
Hmm.
way that that she characterizes her criticisms of him and the administration. And like, I don't know that she had a choice. I think she's created this brand for herself, so she just has to keep running on this brand. And it'd
Hmm.
be, she could pivot, but it would be difficult to pivot sincerely.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
like Paxton's pulling out all these old speeches from Cornyn supporting immigration. I
Hmm.
mean, it's going to be real easy to pull out speeches that Jasmine Crockett or clips of Jasmine Crockett on cable news saying things that are well outside the successful Overton window in Texas.
Yes, that are just gonna rile up white conservative
And
voters
not just
in
white
Texas.
ones, the
Yeah,
Hispanic conservative voters
yeah,
too.
mhm,
And
yeah,
there are black conservative voters in Texas too. I mean,
mhm,
it's going to be. I just don't see her winning. I just
yeah,
can't see her winning. But she's, um, but if it's Tallarico Paxton,
mhm.
I think that's an interesting race.
I think that's an interesting race, and I think Tallarico does benefit in that case from the fact that there is such a high profile Democratic Senate primary. Because Tallarico, we mentioned Jasmine Crockett's in Congress. Tallarico is in the Texas state legislature. He
Yep.
doesn't necessarily have the biggest profile
No.
statewide. He doesn't, and so when you're looking at individuals who really could benefit from an explosion of name ID, the fact that all of that can happen during the primary and that going into the general, he is defined in the minds of Texas voters, or at least a large swath of them, really benefits him. And so that the Democratic primary for Tallarico especially really sets him up for that general election campaign and puts him in a position of strength.
Yeah. I mean, what we're
Mhm,
seeing though in the Democratic race, I think, yeah, I mean, I hear you. And his name
mhm.
recognition, I mean, the guy has benefited from running a very positive campaign
Yes.
so far.
Mhm. Yes.
People like him. They
Mhm.
want their daughters to marry him,
Mhm.
right? He's got that kind of vibe, right?
Yeah.
He's likable. Um,
Mhm.
what I think is but he's also, other than maybe being a Presbyterian minister, I mean, you know where his district is, right?
His is it San Antonio?
No, it's Austin.
That's right. Yeah.
So
That
what?
is a problem.
Right. So he's Austin,
Mhm.
and he is Austin. What we have Austin versus Dallas and Houston,
Mhm.
and Crockett, at least of the city, maybe not the
Yes.
suburbs, but the cities,
Mhm.
right? And Crockett is very much trying to make that clear. You have the
Yes.
Dallas and Houston inner city, or the black communities of
Mhm.
Dallas and Houston versus the affluent white progressives in Austin,
Yeah.
who
No.
want a guy who they think can marry their daughter.
Mhm.
And this is, I think, the thing that Crockett is really hammering home,
Mhm.
right? And why? I mean, this is why she's popular, right? Let's not,
Yeah.
you know. But I just, she could be should be an infinite term congresswoman
Oh, absolutely.
who could get into leadership in
Mm-hmm.
Congress.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
just don't see how she wins a statewide race.
I tend to agree.
Whereas if Tallarico can manage to slide over the finish line against Crockett, and we should and we've talked about this before, but he is a very left wing progressive.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, but he doesn't speak in the same. Um, the rhetoric is very different from Crockett.
Yes.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's more positive. It's less hashtag woke resistance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so I think I could see a situation where if Paxton's the nominee for the Republicans, I can see
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah.
And as Paxton's scandals get,
Spiral.
get bigger,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and his maybe as the candidacy goes on again, and I'm saying this as somebody who admires a great deal of what Ken Paxton can do as a politician, but he does
Mm-hmm.
have some darker qualities that can or some that could under stress emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And if the vibe shifts like it might be, not only to a more democratic, but to a politics where being the absolute arch fighter
Mm-hmm.
is not what people are looking for in November of 2026. I could see, typical Republican voters in the suburbs of Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio saying, let's give the kid a try."
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
we need to get rid of Ken Paxton.
Yeah. No, I agree. And in a race like that where a Republican is favored certainly in Texas, but it's been close enough times now in Texas that I think a Republican nominee to win needs to turn out most of the Republicans.
Yes, they do.
And so in that situation, Ken Paxton's ultimate folly is that there's a third of the Republican Party, say, in Texas, who's just going to say, you know what? Screw Ken Paxton.
Yeah, he has enemies.
Yeah.
And by the way, people assume, you know, Ted Cruz has faced a couple of pretty serious tests
Hmm.
from the Democrats.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz is a divisive figure even among Republicans.
Hmm.
But you'd be hard pressed to find a Republican that hates Ted Cruz.
Yes.
You'd
A
you'd
Republican, yeah. Hmm.
you'd find a lot of Republicans that might be exasperated with him in Texas who might go,
Hmm.
Now, this
Yeah.
cycle, because of the fight with Tucker Carlson, and that might be a little bit different, but I'm speaking historically here.
Yeah.
It was possible for Ted Cruz to get to get every Republican to the polls to annihilate Beto O'Rourke.
Yes.
Um, I don't know if it's possible for Ken Paxton to do that,
Yeah.
but he can do it.
And I
He will do
appreciate,
that against Jasmine Crockett.
yes. I appreciate you drawing that distinction because I think it's often overlooked that there is a difference between being annoyed by a politician of your party and genuinely hating a politician of your own
Right,
party. And yeah, and that is the difference between Ted Cruz and Ken Paxton. I
right.
think he
I
just
think there
has.
is there's Cruz kind of straddles the old Bush era Republicans and the new era
Yeah.
of Republicans, right?
Hmm.
He's kind of an intermediate figure
Hmm.
who's really and again fascinating in his own. I think Ted Cruz is a
Oh,
fascinating
yeah.
political figure, and
Hmm.
I don't know where his political career is going to finish, but the biography on Ted Cruz, whoever writes that is gonna have a banger of a biography.
Oh, I'd read that
Yeah.
book. That'd be a fantastic,
Um,
fantastic book.
but the what we're but yeah, I mean, I think that while there are some his Chamber of Commerce moderate
Hmm.
Republicans who've always sort of rolled their eyes at Ted Cruz,
Hmm.
um, and he and his I think that his manner of speaking can really grate on people because he
Hmm.
does sound like a preacher, and
Yep.
that works for
Hmm.
some people, but it doesn't work for others, even
Hmm.
in the Republican coalition.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but he, he doesn't have anywhere near the same kind of ethical problems of Ken Paxton, even though Ted Cruz's father may have killed Kennedy.
I was hoping that was going to
Yeah,
come up. Yeah.
but he doesn't have anywhere near the same kind of ethical baggage. He doesn't have anywhere near the same kind of enemies list within Texas that Ken Paxton does.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah.
if Paxton wins this primary, which it looks promising for him,
Mm-hmm.
he wipes. I mean, if you're a moderate Texan, like, or you're somebody who's from a moderate wing of the party, or you're just an ordinary non-keyboard warrior Texan,
Mm-hmm.
and your choices are Jasmine Crockett or Ken Paxton in this primary,
That's a lot of cable news. That's a lot of
that's a
cable news.
lot of cable news.
Yeah.
That's the
That,
superstar of Fox News versus the superstar of MSNBC.
yeah. And that I think is Jasmine Crockett's ultimate weakness is she just spends a lot of time in Washington, D.C. cable newsrooms. And in that sort of stench, you could almost call it, I think follows her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, it is a um that would be a fascinating race to watch.
It would be. It would be.
Hmm.
Um, I, it's interesting. Both of those candidates would say, "I can drive people to the polls." A lot of people you'd be driving and holding their nose.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'd be anyway. That'll be interesting. I mean,
that'll
I
be
think there's a monkey's paw somewhere that it guarantees us Crockett
hmm.
versus Paxton in Texas.
Yeah, that may not be the election we like, but
Well,
it's
I
the
mean,
election we deserve.
yeah, the election we deserve. Again, some people might like that election. That's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, again, cards on the table. The cable news keyboard warriors are not my preferred candidates. I
No, not mine either.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
respect what they do. I respect their pugilism. I admire it, and there's obviously a major base for it. And anytime there's a
Hmm.
major base, politicians are going to find them.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just I would imagine that if I was living in Texas, getting those relentless ads, I'd be that'd be real tough for me.
Hmm. No, absolutely,
I'd be
absolutely.
I'd be
Yeah.
I'd be writing in somebody's name. Not sure whose name I'd be writing in, but I'd be writing in somebody's name.
Yeah. No, that. Yeah. Yeah. That
It,
would be a lot of fun to watch.
it will.
Well, it's been an hour and a half.
Yeah, it has been an hour and a half. We probably have other things to do. It is New Year's Eve. Um,
Yeah.
we are associated with Arizona State Center for American Institutions,
Hmm.
and Arizona State is playing Duke in about an hour and a half in
Hmm.
the El Paso in Texas
In Texas.
at the El
Yep.
Paso Sun Bowl, the Tony the Tiger Sun
Oh,
Bowl.
it's important.
Yeah,
We're sponsored not only by that gas
they should,
station
but
in
we
Pierre
would like
that I
Kellogg's
can't
too.
remember the name of, but also Tony the Tiger.
Tony the
Yeah,
Tiger,
those
yeah.
are two spots. Hmm.
And tomorrow is a day full of college football, and then tonight there's a college football playoff game, and tomorrow's.
Hmm.
So I know what I'll be doing.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Anyway,
Jack, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and the best of luck. Go Devils.
Absolutely. All right.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.